Hi there, it's Kevin with Rogue Deck Builder, here with something I haven't done in a long time on this channel, which is do a set review and give my first initial thoughts of the newest set that is coming out. When I polled a bunch of fans as well as people here on YouTube, they say the content they missed the most from me is actually my analysis out of all things. So I thought I'd at least give some filler videos because these are easy just to record and give my thoughts, my kind of edited thoughts. I haven't even looked at many of these cards, and give you my first impressions of Ixalan coming out. Now, I am a big fan of this set from what I've looked at so far because I think the design has really knocked it out of the park in the recent sets for like standard and even cards like into Pioneer. I think the Magic, as far as design is concerned, is in a good spot. I know that we can argue about formats and then the little things that have ruined the formats, like Modern Horizons 2 has definitely made Modern into a rotating format. Of course, there's me Modern Horizons 3 that I'm expecting to have absolutely broken cards because that's the only thing that Wizards of the Coast can do now. They really can't even bring in legacy powered cards into Modern because they've already hit most of those. And so the only thing they can do to sell that set, since they've already tapped out on the fetch lands, is to just power creep. And Standard is starting to get that way a little bit. I think they need to do a reset with Standard with the power level. They always hate doing that because they're in trouble with that. I mean, we can get a whole bunch of topics with. I don't know where Wizards of the Coast is going to go to be able to sell standard sets in the future, because what they're doing with like Ixalan and Eldraine should have been reserved when they did a power reset. What I mean by that is, so like Mana Crypt, and you had Doubling Season out of Eldraine. Those Enchanted Tales / what do they call this ones? I can't remember what they call this slot for Ixalan. I think those definitely should have been saved for the power reset that inevitably has to happen for Standard. But since they didn't do that, they've kind of set that precedent of they're going to continue to do reprints. Man, I'm really worried for where design's going to go because they're just going to have to keep pushing the power level. Otherwise, how are they going to sell sets? But anyway, well, I'm going to get back to the topic at hand here, which is to just give a kind of review of what is spoiled. The whole set has not been spoiled quite yet, but there's enough cards, I think, to go through it and kind of give my thoughts on this. We're going to skip over some of the filler cards. And I'm also going to rant about Commander because I've been reading over these Commander cards here that are Commander exclusive, and man, would they be fun in Pioneer or in Standard. And man, I don't know. I really wish they'd get away from this because it's really confusing too for new players getting into Magic the Gathering with seeing, oh, this is out of Ixalan, so it's got to be standard legal, right? And then you have to explain to them, no, yes, you can get cards out of set boosters, collector boosters, and they're not going to be standard legal. So, and even you can get things out of draft boosters now, and it's not standard legal because of the like Enchanted Tales and whatnot. So yeah, this is disappointing on double ends that way, because there were definitely some cards here that I thought were really, really cool. That are, of course, not going to be playable in many environments because they are Commander exclusive, and Commander is just getting more degenerate as time goes on. There's just every set, of course, is pushing out old cards, and it just creeps power level because it is not a rotating format. I mean, it's legacy at that point. It's no rotation in Commander. So anyway, let's get to these cards, and we'll skip over some of the more boring stuff. So first of all, the mechanics with Descend is kind of cool with the static ability, as well as, triggering things off, putting cards in the graveyard. Correct me if I'm wrong though, Descend does work off of, or triggering off of the cards going in the graveyard does work off, like, it says a permanent card, so treasures going in the graveyard. Man, treasures just keep getting better and better as more mechanics are printed. It seems like if everybody remembers back in when treasures were first created, I hated them because I knew they were going to warp and break the way Magic is played. But it seems like Magic has really leaned into treasures, and they're going to be completely evergreen going forward, and they're going to continue to have a lot of ways to enable key mechanics and break cards. So anyway, let's get on to the Isquinth, the firstborn of Gishath, which is a 2/3 haster. And when it enters the battlefield, you may pay 2. When you do, target dinosaur you control deals damage to another target creature equal to its power. So it makes another dinosaur fight for 2 mana, so it can target itself. So for 4 mana, it can fight something. But this is cool because you can get a 2/3 haster for 2 mana that is very aggressive. And then late game, or by turn 4 on, it actually can become a removal spell as well as a haster. So kind of cool though. These cards are a little bit tricky because legendary is actually, in this particular card, is a drawback because you probably would want multiples of this one, but you can still get the fight triggers off of it. So pretty cool design card there. We got the Capybara capybara, the Baskin capybara. They didn't call this a beast. This is one of my kind of I can't stand when they do this about like a bunch of animals that are very obscure, because this should just be a beast, I think, to work with like the beast tribal, because how many of these have actually been printed? So, I mean, it's just, in my opinion, shouldn't add another creature type when you don't need to add creature types, because, I mean, again, there's so many animals out there. Are they going to start making like hippopotamuses? They basically have those. All the ones that don't have like key mechanics behind them, I think, should be made as beasts, just so they can work alongside. I mean, beast is the term that they put for, fantasy creatures that don't really exist. I mean, they could exist. I mean, it's not, a lot of the beasts that are created aren't that, evolutionary obscure against things that actually do work in the natural world here. So yeah, thinking that this one should be like a beast because it could work in beast. But anyway, I'm really off on a tangent here. It gets +0/+0 as long as there are 4 or more permanent cards in the graveyard, so it becomes a 4/3. Pretty easy to get that. This is going to be very good and limited. 1/3 is kind of awkward, but getting the 4 permanent cards is not bad. And even like constructed play, like back in the day, I could definitely see this card being a constructed playable card, being a 4/3 for 2 mana, because you could easily do that on turn 3 with like a mill effect, or a turn 1 mill effect turn. So you think about, what is the good old zombie that comes to play mills 2? There's 2 permanents right there. When it dies, it mills 2 again. And then you could easily by turn 3 have this a 4/3 beater. But in this day and age, that's completely outclassed. And this might not even be that great and limited. So we have a Braid being reprinted. This is pretty much evergreen at this point. They're putting a Braid in many sets. It's funny because they put this in like master sets as like, oh, this is a needed reprint. And it's, I mean, I think they even dumbed it down from was it originally uncommon? But I digress. It's in a ton of sets now with a Braid, which it does make sense to be a nice little evergreen card, as destroying an artifact, dealing 3 damage to a creature is great modes. This is a good card in like Pioneer. It's seen played in Modern and whatnot. So we have the Primordial Gnawer. I like this mechanic of Discover. It seems like a better Cascade. And this one's kind of cool, of being a 5/2, because it's just going to trade. It's 5 mana though, but then you're going to be able to discover 3 and be able to at least get a 3 casting cost or less permanent on to the battlefield, right? You reveal until you discover with something 3 or less. Is that how it works with Discover? Maybe I should actually look at these mechanics to see how they work, but it's going to get value off of it, which is great and limited. Probably not playable, and of course not playable and constructed at that point. So we have the Frilled Caveworm, which has just Descend, a pretty filler card. 4/5 isn't that great for 4 mana at that point. It's a nice little blocker though. And then we get into the commander cards. I'm going to go over too much of them, but they have a huge lifelink mechanic to them. And spoiler alert, tomorrow's video for the Throwback Thursday, which I'm going to try to get every week out, will be looking at Soul Sisters, because I think that is such a classic Rogue Deck Builder video, or Rogue Deck Builder theme. We played Soul Sisters a lot, and there are some cards in this one that are pretty neat with Soul, if they would have been playable in like Modern with Soul Sisters. But Modern format has pushed out anything like Soul Sisters. Like fair decks are impossible. Like just grindy fair decks without playing. Like I wouldn't even call what people consider fair decks in Modern particularly fair decks, like scam decks or blink decks. Like those are pretty much combo-y unfair decks. They're exploiting abilities in Magic. I don't think the card was necessarily designed. Like a lot of those, like with the scam cards, those were designed as drawbacks, and they weren't meant to, go to the graveyard, be reanimated immediately, and get more value out of them. And then, yeah, so the exiling a card becomes such a, what I'm talking about is like the furies and subtleties and whatnot. And so I wouldn't call those like fair Magic. Soul Sisters was like the fairest of fair decks, and it was a meta call when I actually built it, because there were a lot of decks that just wanted to push damage through like Death Shadow and Burn. And so it was a meta call. And there was, whenever there was like a card that dealt with life, it was always interesting to look at the cards and see if they would actually be playable in the Modern format for Soul Sisters. Now, what I'd love to see with Soul Sisters is I'd love to see them actually introduced into Pioneer, because I think that archetype would shine in Pioneer. Unfortunately, Wizards has like pushed the power level of a lot of cards for, like, they used to have like either only affected one player, and they've affected multiple players now, but they have not done this with like the original Soul Sisters. Like they do not print cards now that say whenever a creature enters the battlefield in your opponent's control, gain a life. So they're not mirrored anymore. That was the whole point to Soul Sisters. You got advantage off of your opponent's creatures coming to play. So that is my one wish for Pioneer, is printing the Soul Sisters into Pioneer. And I don't think it'd be unfair because there's plenty of combo decks that, keep Soul Sisters in check and whatnot. But anyway, there's a lot to do that. I'm not going to go over the Pioneer cards. There were some cool ones though, or the commander cards, like this Charismatic Conqueror. That's a vigilance for 2/2 whenever an artifact or a creature enters the battlefield untapped, opponent either taps it or you get a 1/1 vampire. That card would have seemed super cool in Pioneer or in Standard. Unfortunately, these type of cards they're great in Commander, but it almost feels like they'd be better suited for 1v1 formats. But again, it's they have this word on it with that is just alluding to there's going to be multiple players, so you're going to get more advantage out of having more opponents. So again, we're not going to look at the commander cards too much. This one was cool too. This Master of the Dark Rites is a 1/1. Sacrifice another creature, add 3 mana. Would have been a really cool card too to brew with in like Pioneer. By casting Vampire's Demons. Like this would have been really cool in like the Vampire deck in Pioneer, because Master of Dark Rites would have allowed you with Sorin to cheat out. You'd have 2 ways to cheat out quicker off-curve vampires. But again, unfortunately, Commander, some of the coolest design cards that they put in this set have been Commander only. And it's just, it's sad because it seems that that's where, there's a meme going around of, things that Commander has killed. It's got the angel, or the Reaper that's going from door to door, and it's like Commander killed this format, killed this format. In a way, they've kind of killed design, because it's like, man, again, these 2 cards specifically, they just get my brewer's gear going, and I'd be like, man, how much fun could we have in Pioneer with the Charismatic Conqueror and the Master of Dark Rites? And I don't think they're overpowered at that point for either Standard or, Pioneer. But unfortunately, they're going directly into Commander, which also makes it so they can't go into Modern, which is unfortunate and kind of sad. So again, I'm not a fan of Commander because it does this. I almost feel like Commander should get its card from the same pool that all the other formats get their cards from. And that would have stopped the massive power creeping from Commander. And so, yeah, it's just I'll have to do a rant video some other time about how I can't stand Commander. I mean, look at all these spoiled cards from Commander. It's all Commander that's been spoiled today. So let's just go down a few of the other cards that I find interesting with this. We'll go over kind of the rares and mythics, and maybe I'll do a set review for the commons and uncommons later on. So the Aklazat's Deepest Betrayal, I probably pronounced that wrong. They are starting to really push these mid-range cards, because mid-range hasn't been it's very, very awkward even Standard now for 4 and 5 drops to actually be viable. Like, they need to have immediate effect because of how the curve has worked, especially with treasures being able to cheat in 7 drops. So 7s are like the new mid-range. 7 used to be completely, they had to be a late game. Like, you had to get late game. And now with treasures and other ways to ramp out, it's definitely something that is viable as a mid-range strategy. And now it makes it incredibly awkward for 4 and 5 drops, because you can't really stop aggro with a lot of those ones, because aggro just pushes through. So they're so efficient at pushing through damage that even turn 4 or turn 5, you can't rely on even the cards like Siege Rhino anymore stabilizing the game. That's kind of where we're at with Standard. So these ones have been just in a very awkward state. They keep increasing the power level of them, and it's this really fine line of where they become broken or unplayable. So this is where this card kind of fits in. So it's a 4/4 lifelinker for 5 mana, with so flying lifelink. And whenever it attacks, each opponent discards a card. For each opponent who can't, you draw a card. And so it's really wanting to enable like a discard-based strategy, and then you can get a lot of value out of it. And when an opponent discards a land card, you get a 1/1 bat creature token with flying. And then when it dies, it gets the value of turning into a land. And then you can transform it if your opponent only has 1 or less card in their hand. So I'm liking this mechanic on these gods. I think it's pretty cool because it's a renewable resource, but there is so much exile in the format that I wonder how well that these are going to perform, because, yeah, exile is everywhere, and in black and in white, and even red. So the power level of these might be, of course, in check by just the amount of exiles that exist in the format. We go over to the Bloodletter of Aklazat's. There is a mono black deck right now that's pretty good. And if opponent would lose life during your turn, they lose twice as much. And that's fine, because most of the damage is going to be done during your turn when you're attacking in. So this can be on curve that basically just doubles all your damage. It doesn't have haste or anything else, but I mean, it does have a decent body as a 2/4, but it definitely could be like a curve finisher for those mono black aggro decks. The Bonehard Dracosaur is one of those cards that is so interesting to me because it just looks completely broken. If I'm looking at a mindset of 2015 Kevin, this card would be in every deck. Every deck that plays like a mid-range red or even a curve topper for red, this card would be really good because if it survives one turn, you're getting a lot of value out of it. It's a 5/5 flying first strike for 5 mana. So, I mean, you're at Baneslayer Angel stats at that point. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top 2 cards of your library. You may play them. And why talk about Baneslayer Angel? Baneslayer Angel used to be the best 5-drop. It used to be like the quintessential card you talk about for like 5 mid-range, like kind of curve-topping creature that just takes over the game. But nowadays, Baneslayer Angel, in fact, the last time they printed it in Dominaria, it saw no play because it was just kind of weak, because it didn't have any sort of ETB effect. And this is where this card is. It needs a turn to start getting value, but at flying first strike 5/5, great stats. And your upkeep, exile the top 2 cards of the library. You may play them this turn. If you exile a land card, you create a 3/1 dinosaur creature. And if you exile a non-land card, you create a treasure. So it actually helps you cast your cards after that. Of course, so again, this card we'll have to wait and see. The problem is that we're in such a format with like 5 mana removal. There's a lot of decks that just play a lot of board wipes at 5 at that point. I don't know how playable this card is going to be and where it will fit in the meta. We had like the Caverns of Souls reprint. That's a great reprint. It did need, a Pioneer introduction, right? This is the first time it's into Pioneer, so this is going to definitely shake up Pioneer. Now we have the Chimel or Chimel. I'm not sure how they pronounce this one. The Inner Sun. And spells you control can be countered. And the beginning of your end step, you discover 5. So that's pretty good. So you're going to start getting cards from the top of your library until the exile on the card with mana value 5 or less and cast it without paying its mana cost. And so you keep getting that every turn. This is a card that definitely does scream brew around me. It is kind of weak though. It doesn't get it immediately. It does have to wait till the end step, so you can interact with it with like abrading it at that point. But it does work at your end step, not at the beginning of your upkeep. So that actually is interesting with like board wipe type effects, because you can YOLO and hopefully slam the Inner Sun, and then hopefully hit a board wipe, and it still would be like casting on your turn as a sorcery. We have Galta. Galta is a pretty neat card with the 12/12 with 7 mana. It's super uncosted at that point. And then you could put any number of creature cards from your hand on the battlefield. I can definitely see some shenanigans with this because there are a lot of cards that have been printed, like search your library for X amount of cards, put one of them into play and the rest in your hand. And that can work with those type of cards. Or, you just have a lot of draw type effects and a lot of mana dump. Throw this out and you can get a ton of mana on board, especially if anything else like a Creative Behemoth that then can give it haste. And it's just a big beefy dinosaur at that point. We got Gishoth. This is a reprint. Last time it didn't see much standard play. There's a few Reanimator decks that did. And the thing is, like, Reanimator has been struggling for decent targets recently in standard, and this might actually be one that is kind of a tried, tested, and true reanimation target with Vigilance, Trample, Haste. We know what it does. It goes and gets dinosaurs and puts them on. But it's just a pretty decent reanimation hit with Vigilance, Trample, Haste as well. And there's enough dinosaurs I think they can work around it in a reanimation strategy. We have isn't the Titan of Industry? Is that a dinosaur? No, it's not. That's an elemental. I thought there was another dinosaur. It's pretty good. Anyway, it was printed as a plant dinosaur, one of the recent sets. Maybe I'm thinking of a different... Oh, that's the ramp one. That's what I'm thinking of. We have Huatli, Poet of Unity, the 3 mana for a 2/3 enters the battlefield, search your library for a basic land, reveal it, put in your hand, and shuffle. So it's pretty cool. It gets your 3 mana. It's a Borderland Ranger, just like a strict upgrade to that. And then you can exile it and transform, and it turns into a saga with creating a 3/3 green dinosaur token. So, and then allows all of your creatures to tap for mana, then searches for a dinosaur, and then dinosaurs gain trample and double strike. So you can get your land, and then at 5, you can turn into a saga. It's kind of a weird card. It takes a while. Like, I'd rather have a way to flip this instead of trying to pay that 5. But yeah, I'm wondering how this one will fit. In my opinion, it does replace itself with a basic land for 2/3 for 3 mana, which isn't terrible. Like, again, it's got nice little toughness stats for it. Now, this one's interesting. Commander players are loving this Ogier. I did a video on my Rogue Market channel. Unfortunately, I read it wrong, so I thought it hit creatures and opponents. But if a red source you control would deal an amount of non-combat damage less than the power of Ogier, that sources deal damage equal to the power. So if you buff this up, you can do a lot of things that do like increments of damage. So Commander players are really brewing with this sucker. It does seem like it'd be a fun card to brew with in Commander. And then it's got the nice little transform if you can deal exactly 4 non-combat damage this turn. So that's really cool because it doesn't have to go to opponents, right? So activate only for red sources you control, deal 4 non-combat damage this turn. So you can even do non-combat damage to your own creatures if that's like something you have to do to then be able to transform it back. And so again, we'll have to wait and see how well these gods do. They don't have like indestructible. They can get exiled. Speaking of the gods, we have the green one with the Osier Caslum, deepest growth, or Caslum. It's a 6/5 for 5 with trample, and when it deals combat damage to player, reveal that many cards from the top of your library. You may put a creature card and or land card from them on the battlefield. So this was really cool too because it can get something that's bigger, like a Titan of Industry. And you reveal that many cards. So, and you can get a land too, so it's not bad. It doesn't have haste though. Again, haste might put it over the top, but this is still a pretty value card for 5 mana for 6/5. And then if you have 10 or more permanents, you can then switch it back over. What's cool about that is you typically do have the 5 already, and then the 6 from this. So you only need 5 more to then transform it over. So this one's kind of cool because late game, I can see this one in like a top end of a green deck, or like the Golgari deck right now as a one of, just as something that can give you that kind of residual push, because that's really like Standard is turned into a grindy format with like the lands and removal decks, and so things that can survive and then get some, I mean, this one's really difficult to deal with once you get up to 10. It's very easy to transform, so you can just keep transforming it back and forth. All right, so then we have the deepest epoch, and whenever you cast an instant sorcery, it gains rebound. So this one's actually a really cool card too, because as soon as you get up to 4 mana, you can get and the 4/3/5 for 4 mana is not bad, but then you can start getting value off of rebound. And so I kind of like this in like a heroic strategy of then protecting this inevitably, and then if it does get removed by a non-exile, you can transform it by having no time counters, and it just gets time counters on it by when it dies, you put 3 counters. So it's going to inevitably come back. So control decks are going to kind of like it because you can even remove it with your own removal spell. And it's cool too, is they get rebound your instant sorceries, but you can use a board wipe. So turn 4, board wipe, and then you'll have a board wipe again the next turn. And so it actually deter opponents from re-establishing a board state. And then it's going to be just a few time counters away for this to come back. So 4/3. So another neat little card. Like all of these gods are kind of cool. They have. I think that they are pretty relevant in this standard format, except for the fact there's a lot of exile. Now, the one I actually think is the worst for standard play, but it's just going to be eaten up by commander players, is going to be this Deepest Foundation. A 6/6 for 6 mana, vigilance. It's got Sun Titan stats right there. If you would create 1 or more tokens, create 3 instead. It's just a win more card in standard. That's it. However, the thing with this one is neat though in standard, and what I might be kind of eating my words here, is it actually does go in a current deck in kind of the domain lands matter, like the lands finisher deck, because you're running so many board wipes. And like Mirrex putting out more tokens or putting out extra tokens from incubate tokens it still to me seems like a win more, because those are just basically grindy decks that you win the game by controlling the board, and then you just have a bunch of token generation that just wins the game at that. But I mean, there's a lot of planeswalkers that also create tokens, but again, it doesn't really care too much about your own board wipes, because you can then get it back by activating 3 or more creatures attack this turn. And in a token based strategy where you're pumping out tokens, I can see this actually working. But again, it feels to me like more of a win more card. So now we have the Quintoria's Khand. This is a 5 mana for 4. It does have the static ability, which I think we're going to see more of, because Planeswalkers have really lost their relevancy. Like Jason Mind Sculptor would even be that playable in standard at this point. Or, I mean, it'd be fair in Pioneer, in my opinion. The only Planeswalkers that are super broken this day and age are like Narset and Teferi. And they have the static abilities that really make them matter. So I think that we're going to see Wizards really shifting more into these static abilities on Planeswalkers. So this one, whenever you cast a spell from exile, deals 2 damage to each opponent, you gain 2 life, which is okay. It's fine. And then creating a 3/2 red and white spirit creature token actually seems kind of weak for a 5-drop. Yeah, I guess that's right. This is a plus though. And then Discover 4 is fine, because we got that Cascade effect for 4. So you can immediately drop it down, Discover 4, and that's not too terrible. You got a Planeswalker that can then, gain some life because you will be casting this from exile. This Discover does cast from exile. And then if you do get it up to its -6, you can exile and inventory cards from your graveyard, and you can add a bunch of mana to your mana pool. Right, Discover, I'm doing the right. Yeah, Delve and Discover, they're both D mechanics, and it's kind of messed me up. Got Resplendent Angel is a reprint. This was an expensive card. It's getting reprinted, so it's going to get crushed. And if you gain 5 more life this turn, create a 4/4 white angel token. So again, I love Soul Sisters to actually be viable in Pioneer. Saheeli, this was actually one of my favorite cards looking over some of the spoilers I've seen like off and on. For 2 mana for a 2/2, so it comes out quick, and then you can start creating a token that's a copy of another target creature or artifact. So that's interesting because there are a lot of artifacts with ETBs right now that get a lot of value, and there are a few artifacts that have ETBs when they come in and die. And so Saheeli with 2 mana can just value grind this, and also that it might make going into like Blood Tithe Harvester type strategies viable again, because this is 2 mana, create a blood token and a Blood Tithe Harvester, remove something, and there's your residual, basically your removal over and over and over. And so going back into the shell of going into Grixis for the Blood Tithe Harvester, I think with Saheeli might be viable, and definitely I think that will be absolutely a playable type of strategy, because you can do this, like they do share the converted mana cost, so you would have to cast Saheeli, hopefully it survives a turn. You probably don't want to do the Blood Tithe Harvester on turn 3, because turn 4 you want enough mana to actually to use it. But in grindy based decks, I think that is a viable combo, and there are plenty of other cards in that particular deck that actually do work too. There's the other Vampire that exiles top cards of libraries, and you can cast stuff. And so Saheeli works basically like, flipping the Fable. And of course, there is that mana cost that you have to dump into it, but still, it's not bad. If this sucker you can keep it out. I can even see it in like a tempo control based shell. Just get a lot of value out of those type of cards. And again, if you can find something that has an ETB and a die effect, and there are plenty of them that exist right now, and this is a pretty powerful card at that point. We have the Sovereign. So the Sovereign has a ward 2 for 4 mana. Whenever it attacks, for each creature you control with power greater than the creature's base power, put a number of +1 counters on the creature equal to the difference. So nice little curve ender at 4. It has ward. So you could see some go wide type strategies with these Celestia. It's a color combination that's really fallen out of favor with how Standard kind of works with it. It's really awkward for Celestia decks because of just the way the meta attacks with control decks just sweeping the board, and a lot of like the tempo decks, like the black or blue tempo decks, being able to remove stuff as well as create pressure. Celestia has been very awkward for years now in like Standard. All right, the Ancient One. This is probably one of my favorite cards that has been spoiled so far, because it does work with a card that I've been obsessed with for a while called Varls in the Pioneer format. So Varls just wants to find things that are cheap converted mana cost. They have big power, and this is exactly what we're looking for. And there have been a few others that have been printed lately. So I actually think like a bug, black, blue, green strategy of, I can't even remember the Sultai, the color combination. Varl's deck in Pioneer would be very fun. I don't know if it's viable, but it'd be super fun with like putting out these 8/8s for 2 mana and then Varl's them away. It's got a nice little, if there are 8 cards in your graveyard that can attack and block, that is actually not that hard to do. So it is a legendary creature though, so can't multiples these out. It does have a static ability of draw a card and discard a card, and then you mill, and so it's able to get that 8 in the especially you're utilizing like high converted mana cost stuff. It's pretty easy to get this sucker ready to start attacking. So kind of interesting though with the stats here, and any other card that allows you just to eat to gain some sort of value out of having power or toughness with 2 mana. I mean, there's going to be a lot of combinations. So as far as Brewing is concerned, this is the one that's the most interesting to me for, like, again, I don't like this blatant obvious cards that are like, oh, this is going to combo with this. Like, I like to have to work to find combos. And I think this one is you do have to work a little bit to find combos. We have the Enigma Jewel. 1 mana. Enters battle tapped. Add 2 mana. Spend this only to activate abilities. There are plenty of activated abilities, like we saw one with Watley up there. That, I mean, that's a weird color combination, but I mean, right next to it, the Millennial Calendar, there's one that's activated abilities. Going to be a commander staple in my opinion. And if you can actually get this sucker flipped, which, so craft with 4 more non-lands with activated abilities. So if you can get enough activated abilities in your graveyard to then craft this sucker, or is it out of your hand and graveyard? Exile 4 more cards from among permanents you control and or in your graveyard. Okay. Then you can turn it into the Locus of Enlightenment, which has each activated ability of the exile cards used to craft it. So it's got a lot of activated abilities. So people are definitely going to find some infinite combos with Enigma Jewel. Like any of the 2-card infinite combo artifacts are going to work with this because it does work with mana abilities. And then whenever you activate an ability that isn't a mana ability, you copy it. So yeah, this is going to have so many Commander infinite combos. I'm surprised this one's actually pre-selling for just $7 because this one just seems like it's going to have, like, there's already decks I can think of, like Teferi, which is like like almost a CDH deck. I haven't looked at CDH for a long time, but it does use a lot of like things with activated abilities. So non-land cards with activated abilities too. So you can hit Planeswalkers, right? But it probably can't use the Planeswalker activated abilities because it isn't a Planeswalker. So someone correct me if I'm wrong with loyalty abilities of how this will work, because it won't be considered a Planeswalker. So even though it will have the activated abilities of being able to +1 or -1, you can't do it. That's what I'm assuming. But yeah, that's interesting though, if it's not that way. So exile this. Oh, so non-land. Yeah, non-land. So it doesn't specify artifacts here. So yeah, interesting. So we got the Millennial Calendar. I hate these cards. I like alternate win conditions, but people eat them up. Whenever you tap one or more permanents during your untap step, whenever you untap one or more permanents during your untap step, put that many counters on it, and then you can double the amount of counters. And as soon as you get up to 1,000, good luck with keeping track of the math here and making sure everyone does it right. Then you can sacrifice to do 1,000 damage to each opponent. Cool. Yeah, kind of boring card. Again, draw go type strategies and really just wiping the board and getting this guy pumped up. Boring card. The Myco Tyrant, another one that's very interesting here with the 3 mana with the Star. Its power and toughness to each equal number of creatures you control that are fungi and or saplings. So it's going to be a 1/1. And at the end of your end step, you create a 1/1 black creature token. How many times you descended? So many permanents have gone to your graveyard. Now, I believe Descended does work with blood tokens, with treasures. Those are considered permanent tokens. They hit their graveyard, then they go away, but they still do activate this Descend. I'm pretty certain on this. So you guys can correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section. But the way this one, I think, is you want to hit a treasure off of this to cast it, so at least you get a 1/1, so it's a 2/2. And then you can start milling, and then you can start creating the big go wide strategy. So that's the way I would play it. Is it playable and constructed? I am not sold on that. The trample does make it a little bit better. The getting value at the beginning of your end step is hopefully, again, I mean, there could be after a board wipe too. That's something with the Myco Tyrant. So they wipe your board, but that's weird. You'd have to wipe it on your turn. So you'd have to wipe your board, and then the Myco Tyrant will then refill your army. Yeah, kind of weird. The Skullpore Nexus is a 8 mana, and this spell costs X less to cast, where X is the greatest power among creatures control, so kind of like the Great Hinge. And you can double the target creature's power until in turn, and then whenever one or more non-token creatures you can die, create a fungus dinosaur equal to power and toughness, each equal to the power of those creatures. So it's board wipe, only get one creature, but it'll be huge. But if you can have different instances that trigger at different times, then you can start getting basically tokens of those of the power and toughness. So interesting card. Legendary makes it kind of awkward, and being kind of stuck, not being able to cast it, and then having to rely on 8 mana. But we saw with the Great Hinge how powerful these type of cards can be cheated out for 2 mana pretty easily. We saw like there's a 6 mana right there with the God, and then you can start getting a lot of value out of it. So we have Vito, Fanatic of Aklazats. So whenever you sacrifice a permanent, the first time you gain 2 life, the second time each opponent loses 2 life, and the third time you get a 4/3 white black vampire token. Like I mentioned, treasures, blood tokens, all those type of cards are. It's a vampire. Does this actually work in like a modern vampire or a pioneer vampire? Probably not. 4/4/4/4 sacrificing stuff. There are a few things in those that do work, but I wish it would have its own activated way to sacrifice something, but it does not. So I wish when it entered the battlefield, you can sacrifice. What's that mechanic even called? Merge, or I can't even think of the mechanics that allow that to happen. Now we have the Abuelo, the Ancestral Echo. This is a 2 mana for 2/2 flying ward. X another target creature control and return it to the battlefield at the beginning of the next end step. So it's not allowing for like crazy combos to happen. But we've seen these type of. It's been a while since we had this renewable resource of flickering. And it is like a pseudo flickering because it takes a while. But end step, it's pretty cool. You can exile something. Is this as a source? It's not. at the beginning of the next end step. So you can protect, you can block and exile. Yeah, really powerful limited card, insanely powerful limited card. And this will have a lot of cards with any sort of ETB effect that could definitely break in. I'm thinking, what's the one out of the Angel that has shield tokens, and you remove shield tokens and get value, and then flickering it for 3. You could really grind some stuff out with this sucker. So I do like the ward with it. It's given away to protect itself. Pretty neat little card there. We have a call. 1/5 for 3 at the beginning of each player's end step. If an artifact entered the battlefield under your control, look at the top 2 cards of the library, one in your hand and one in the graveyard. Again, it's at the beginning of each player's end step. If an artifact entered the battlefield under your control, so if you have ways to put the tokens, which now we have blood, clue, we have map tokens now, we have treasure tokens, which there should be a lot of ways you can do this on your opponent's turn as well. You can start to gain a lot of... Are Myrics are also artifacts, right? The little Phyrexian tokens. So, yeah. So you could actually create one on your opponent's turn and actually get some value. So the 1/5 body is kind of neat too. So this sucker could definitely grind a lot of value. But these type of cards haven't seen a lot of play in Constructed. Just the way, again, the tempo of the game has shifted over time of having to have must-answer threats that immediately gain value or do stuff. And this sucker, again, is more of a grindy card. But if we ever do it in grindy formats, these are the type of cards that do tend to shine. We have Amalia, and Amalia is a 2/2 for 2 mana, and whenever you gain life, it explores. And then destroy all other creatures if you have exactly 20 power. And we have the ward of paying 3 life. So it's a very aggressive card for 2 mana with Vampire Scout, though, not like a Cleric or another relevant. But the 2/2 body is fine, 2/2, and then ward 3 is pretty good. With paying life is pretty decent. And then the exploring is really cool with whenever you gain life, because this would be... Here we go. This would be such a fun card in Soul Sisters, because this sucker could dig for whatever you needed and get a lot of cards in the graveyard. Like, so going back to like the Rally Ancestors or any sort of way to return cards back from the graveyard, Amalia could be kind of double dip here. And would this just work with... Isn't there a card that says whenever you explore, you gain 3 life? So we have the Walker, right? So whenever you gain life, it explores. Whenever you explore, you gain life. So isn't that just a 2-card infinite combo in Pioneer? And then it just... Then if its power is exactly 20, it destroys stuff. So you can do it... Well, and you don't have to get the +1 counters unless... Yeah. Well, you can put it +1 counter on it. Yeah. Wow, that's pretty cool. So the Wild with Walker in this, I believe, is in Pioneer. Just goes not quite infinite, but you get a 20/20 just off of that. And that seems pretty easy. You just have to have a way to gain some life and then start the combo. Yeah, this is pretty sweet. This is a pretty sweet... I'll have to look at that to see if it actually does work, but that's actually pretty cool. I apologize if some other person's already done this because I'm getting to this kind of late, but that's an interesting little brew card. All right, so we have the Bedrock Tortoise. Another tortoise for 4 mana, as long as it's your turn. Creatures you control have hexproof. Kind of good, actually, because you can not worry about removal at that point. Just slam this sucker down, and they have to before combat. Like, it enables combat tricks really well because you don't have to fear your opponents actually interacting with your combat tricks. However, each creature you control deals with toughness rather than damage while doing damage, combat damage. Okay, toughness rather than power when assigning combat damage. So basically it's a 6/6 for 4 mana. A very cool card. This might enable some strategies in Pioneer because we do have a few cards like this that do work right now that could be incredibly aggressive. So yeah, I'm liking this card too. I'm going to write this one. So I got my little cheat sheet here of the top 10s. I do like this Bedrock. The Bedrock's really cool. The Bedrock Tortoise. Yeah, I really like this card too. And of course, Amalia. That one's a really cool card. We have the Braided Net. This is a 3 mana and has a 3 net counters on it. And you can move a net counter to tap something. And tap another non-land target permanent. Its active abilities can't be activated as long as remaining tapped. And then it works with what's the one that wants tapped creatures. Isn't that out of the last set with Eldraine? So it kind of pairs with that. And then you can craft it with an artifact to draw a card for each artifact you control, then put it into its owner's library 3rd from the top. So then it gets a little draw effect. Limited, this is going to be a pretty cool card. Constructed, I don't know. It's really mana intensive on both ends to start getting... I mean, you can tap something. I guess you get some value off of it. Yeah, I can see it. And it's like a tempo strategy. Now, this one's really cool. The Brass's Tunnel Grinder, I've actually looked at this one already. For 3 mana, you get basically a wheel effect for 3 mana. Just you. and you can discard whatever you want and draw that many. And then the beginning of your end step, if you descended this turn, which you did because you're drawing and discarding, you remove put a board counter on the tunnel grinder, and when there's 3 or more, you transform it. And then it's got this really cool ability of whenever you cast a permanent spell using mana produced by the Searing Rift, you discover X, where X is that mana spell value. That's actually insanely good. So you get a loot to find what you want. So it's enabling auto graveyard-based strategies. And then it's got this renewable way to just grind out a ton of value for... It doesn't need to do permanent spells, but I mean, that's pretty easy to do, especially in these cascade type effects. And I really like this card. Like, this is just a Brewer's Paradise type card, and this one's definitely gonna make my top 10 list. Spoiler alert. So we have Breach's Eager Pillager, 3 mana for 3/3, first strike. Whenever pirate you control attacks, which this is a pirate, create a treasure token, target creature can't block, exile top card library and play it. Very good card. Legendary does keep it back from being played in multiples, but it might be good enough. It doesn't have haste, does have first strike, so it's gonna have to wait a turn unless you curve in with another pirate, which I'm trying to think if there is a 2-mana pirate at the moment. I'm thinking of some vampires that see play as a 2-drop, some humans. I wonder if there's a pirate. Well, there probably is, and is Ragavan a pirate monkey, or is it just a monkey? Man, I should really keep up on Magic cards. But yeah, so there's some really cool, definitely some synergies. 2-drop, 1, 2, 3 pirates gets a lot of value. Creating treasure tokens, can't block is relevant. All these are relevant for like an aggro strategy. We have the Bringer of the Last Gift. Now, this one actually I wish was a legendary creature because it'd be a really cool commander for 8 mana for a 6/6. When there's a battlefield, if you cast it, each player sacrifices all their creatures they control. And then each player returns all creature cards from their graveyard to the battlefield that weren't put there. So they're not allowing you to reanimate this, so you have to get up to the 8 mana. So that is keeping it back from, but you can cascade into it or discover into it. I guess that's a new word for it. But it is very costly at 8 mana. But, self-mill strategies, really cool. You board wipe, then you have the board state. Of course, like in Commander, like the Gary strategies, the Grey Merchant of Asphodel, mill a ton of stuff, Bringer of the Last Gift. So I'm trying to think of the Commander from Thornvale Drain that mills cards and deals damage, and then, it wants to go in like a reanimation strategy. This card's going to go in it. All right, well, how many more rares do we got? We'll call this one good when we got a lot to go. So I think we will... go through a few more here and call it good, and maybe we'll do a part 2 video where should we go to the D's? Let's go to the D's here, and then we'll do a part 2 video of some analysis here, since this video is already getting quite long. So on to the Corpses of the Lost. Interesting card because this is another grindy based card. I typically like these grindy value based cards. So skeletons get +1 to have haste, and when it enters the battlefield, you get a 2/2 black skeleton pirate. So you get it again for 3. And then if you've descended, which if your skeleton died, I believe that does trigger descended. If permanent card is put in your graveyard, even if it's a token, at the beginning of your end step, you can pay a life to return it to its owner's hand. So it's kind of cool because it gets the Constellation enabling. So there's a lot of synergy with Constellation. And then it is just like a renewable 3 mana, get a 2/2, which ends up being a 3/2. And being able to do, it doesn't trigger on your opponent's end step, just yours. So it can't be that defensive. But you can put it out 2/2 and then get it back if like a treasure died or whatnot. It is neat. It's a neat little grindy card. And again, this would have to, like, around Constellations, other ETB effects with permanents, having a renewable, consistent way to do it are always really cool cards to try to find synergies with. We had the Cosmium Confluence. This is going to be a very popular commander card. You can choose 3 modes, and the same mode can be chosen multiple times. You search a library for a cave, and I believe cave does exist in other, as a land type. Put it on the battlefield, tap and shuffle. Put 3 +1/1 counters on a cave. It becomes an elemental, so you can turn a cave into a creature, or you can destroy enchantments. So, sorcery speed, sure. With a Deep Fathom Echo, at the beginning of combat on your turn, it explores, and then you may have it become a copy of another creature you control until end of turn. So a 4/4/4, sure, and then it immediately gets explore, so it can be a 5/5 or get a land. So the value's there for sure. But again, in standard, that's kind of awkward. You're into shielded territory at that point. But I mean, it doesn't even have to attack to start getting the explore triggers. And it can copy other stuff too. So another creature you control. So you have to copy something you control. All right, so the Deeproot Pilgrim. So this is, people have already talked about how this might make modern Merfolk a lot better because there are synergies, and even Pioneer. Whenever one or more non-token merfolk you control become tapped, you create a 1/1 merfolk creature token with hexproof. So it's enchantment though. So you need to this. I think might be better suited as a creature because it would have worked with, hitting your tempo right. So you'd have to have a 1-drop and then a 2-drop Pilgrim attack with the 1-drop, get a merfolk, and then you're kind of awkward because your 3-drop doesn't have haste. So I think it's a little bit overrated at the moment. This is fun though. You can start pumping out a lot of merfolk creature. There are merfolk with activated abilities, and I believe a lot of them do have renewable activated abilities, and you can probably get a lot of, like Intruder Alarm with Deep Root Pilgrimage is going to make for a lot of infinite combos. So Intruder Alarm, whenever a creature enters the battlefield, untap things, and then I'm sure you can tap a merfolk to do something, and then it'll create a 1/1 untap. So Deep Root Pilgrimage and Intruder Alarm, this is going to be a, you're going to see that a lot in Commander. And possibly even Modern. I mean, it curves. It definitely curves with if you have a 1-drop merfolk, which I know there is one. There's one that just that changes the land type. So I can already think of a turn 3. Is Intruder Alarm 4 or 3? So I can already think of a combo here in Modern with a Deep Root Pilgrimage, Intruder Alarm, and yeah. So there's the 1-drop merfolk that just turns a land into an island. And I believe it's just an activated ability of tapping. So correct me if I'm wrong here, because I could be wrong. And so when one or more token, so you get a 1/1 merfolk, it untaps it, and you just basically infinite merfolks. So you have to wait a turn, of course, to then do something with them, so board-wise. But yeah, Intruder Alarm, I believe it's on curve too, because if I'm not mistaken, Intruder Alarm is a 3-drop. So 1, 2, 3, we found. Maybe I will write that one down with Intruder Alarm, because that is a cool combo for Modern. I'm not sure if it's playable in this day and age in Modern, but I could also see it. Is there something else that works like Intruder Alarm for untapping creatures? So we have the Deep Root Pilgrimage with Intruder Alarm. I'm writing down notes as I go. Dire Flare. This is just going to be a very aggressive equipment. 1 mana for a +2/+0 equip. Craft with an artifact turns into a better equip. So it can have, when you do creatures deal damage equal to the power of the target creature, whenever a creature actually may sacrifice an artifact other than. So you can sacrifice treasures. So this is just this is a limited bomb for sure. So it's got this like almost Rancor ability for 1 mana, just throw it on stuff. So these type of equipments are pretty good. And is there an equipment matter strategy right now? I know Pioneer is just on the verge of making it matter. And this is actually like quite a good card for this because it's good in multiples. It's 2 mana to give something +2/+0. So any token becomes a 3 power, like any old token. And so, yeah, I actually like this card a lot. So we got to the D's with this spoiler video. So there are some really interesting cards with Ixalan that, yeah, are pretty fun to brew. And maybe this is all I need to do is to get back in the swing of things, is just to kind of look at these cards and get those good old brewer gears going. And maybe we'll give it a try in Standard or Pioneer or whatnot. And I don't know if I'll do gameplay videos. See, I'm still in kind of the same rut I am with gameplay. I love Paper Magic, but I can't stand Arena. Arena just, like, it grinds my gears. It doesn't doesn't lubricate them. And so I don't want to get back in MTGO because I can't justify being on 2 different. I just want them to condense them into 1 program. And Wizards of the Coast is such a failure of a game. There'd be so much more I'd do to this game if they'd actually just get with the times and give us what we want, what we're craving for. But there's some other good reprints here reprints, some more spoilers here we'll get to. But this video is already long enough now. It's up to about 47 minutes. So hope you enjoyed my analysis. Like, it's pretty cool. Like, a lot of these cards we can dig a lot deeper in them, and I know there's some other really cool combinations that are to be found with these cards. But hope you enjoyed my analysis, and we'll be on to another spoiler video in the coming days, hopefully. Maybe I'll do one tomorrow. I'm going to do a top 10 list as well. And we do need to do the Throwback Thursday, which I'm pretty sure is going to be talking about my run with Soul Sisters. As always, I appreciate everyone for watching. I know this channel is on the decline as we are losing subscribers, so I appreciate if you aren't a subscriber to go ahead and hit that subscribe, and let's revive this channel and see where we can actually take that. See if we can motivate me to get back into this thing we call Magic the Gathering. Hope you enjoyed this video. Kevin with, where are we? Rogue Deck Builder. Thanks for watching.